What's up, people of YouTube? This is Road here, bringing you guys another video to the channel, and today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. Now, you guys all know, if you've been a part of the channel for a long time, you guys all know that I definitely love top 10s and list formed videos. So today we are going to be making another list formed video, but in this video we are going to be specifically discussing the best games of the decade. So we are about to go into the year of 2020, which is kind of insane to think about. And from 2010 to 2020, there have been some insane games that have released on the PlayStation 3, the 360, the PC, the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One. There have been absolutely insane games that have come out over the last 10 years. And I just kind of wanted to discuss my favorite of those games, my top 10 list of games that have released from 2010 to 2020. And this was a hard list to make. I probably had around 17 to 18 games wrote down that I absolutely loved, and I had to go through and I had to figure out what 10 games made this list as my all-time favorite. Now, before we get into the video here, if you guys would go ahead and hit the like button as well as subscribe for more content, I would really appreciate it. And the gameplay that's being used in these videos, if it's not my own gameplay, I will have a link down below in the description to the YouTube video that I used for the gameplay. So all this gameplay is not mine, just so you guys are aware. I did download a lot of this, but the links to that will be, again, down in the description. So go check out those channels. At number 10, the very first game on this list is the reboot of Tomb Raider, which I believe released in 2013. Now, in this game, if you guys don't know a lot about Tomb Raider, you do play as a young college graduate, Lara Croft, and you're trying to make an impact in the world of adventure just like her father was. She ends up learning that when you're doing this kind of adventure, it does come at a price, because her ship eventually does end up sinking, and she finds herself stranded on an island outside of Japan, and ultimately she has to fight in scenarios for her life as well as her friends' lives that you would probably not think is even possible, as well as herself. And this really grows her, and she turns into the adventure that she wanted to be. But you see a lot of brutal things in this game. It was very emotional and realistic. You actually felt that like there was so much on the line. And that's why I felt like this was a good fit for my number 10 spot. Overall, again, it was a good game. It was a compelling story. It was kind of open world in a way. It had, hunting aspects. It had a very lush island, which is something that I absolutely love in games when it's really lush and beautiful. But it was also very dark, and you really you learn about a part of the world that you initially thought was realism, and then you learn about this part of the world that you're playing in that's so much deeper than you could possibly imagine. At number 9, we have Batman Arkham City, which is the sequel to Batman Arkham Asylum. So in the events of Batman Arkham Asylum, you're in Arkham Asylum, obviously, and you are fighting against the Joker and the takeover of that insane asylum. After the events of that, obviously there are villains who are on the loose, and they are out and they are free, and you are fighting against the Joker and his plan to use this toxin to basically turn certain people into super soldiers, in a sense, and fight you and take over Gotham City. So you fight against these characters all across Gotham City to take back Gotham City, and it's a really fun experience. It's got a really compelling story, and you run into so many nostalgic Batman characters. If you guys are familiar with any of the Batman comics or the TV shows, anything like that, I really love Batman. He's one of my favorite superheroes. So to see this world evolve in such a manner in a video game was absolutely fascinating. And we've had some shows and stuff since then that have highlighted that, but you see so many villains, from Two-Face to Catwoman, the Penguin, Ra's al Ghul's daughter. I don't remember if you see Ra's al Ghul in the... Anyways, there's so many characters. Obviously the Joker and Solomon Grundy. I think Mad Hatter's in there. It's insane. There's so many characters. It's so compelling. Great story. Some of the best fighting mechanics for a third-person game ever, and it ended up getting used in multiple games after that weren't even part of the Batman series. So again, it's a great game if it's something that you guys like. If you like that third-person arcade fighting style game, and adventurous, it's open world as well, then definitely check out Batman Arkham City, and that is why it's at my number 9 spot. At number 8, I can already feel myself getting roasted for this. I have Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the Modern Warfare that released this year. keep in mind that this is not based off of the multiplayer. This entire recap of games of the last decade is purely based on the storyline. I will have a separate video for multiplayer based games, but the story of Modern Warfare was so insane and so real in a sense that I couldn't not have it on this list. I don't want to go as far as to say that it's my favorite, Call of Duty campaign, because I really did like Modern Warfare 2. I really did like the original COD 4. I even like some of the older World War II style Call of Duty games, but those games were made prior to 2010, so I couldn't put them on the list. But Modern Warfare was so dark and gritty and realistic in a sense of something that we actually have to fight with from day to day, and that is modern day terrorism. It struck home. We see mass shootings all of the time in the United States. We see foreign terrorism, we see domestic terrorism, other countries see it, and so to see that in a video game that portrays things in such a realistic manner in close quarters combat, when you don't know if the person you're about to pull the trigger on is completely innocent or if they have a bomb under their jacket, these kinds of things happen in real life. We only see a small glimpse of it on television shows, and to actually be playing the character that has to experience that was humbling, very humbling, and very cool to see in the video game world. And a lot of those decisions and consequences from those decisions made you feel bad, because they didn't stop you from killing an innocent mother trying to save a baby. They don't stop you from doing that. If you make that mistake and you pull that trigger, that's something that you have to play with the rest of that game. So that's why I felt like Modern Warfare deserved to be on this list, because it's something that we haven't really seen before in shooters especially, and in that type of media, covering that type of information. So again, that's why I felt like it deserved to be on the list. Not based on multiplayer, not based on Spec Ops, purely just the campaign. At number 7, I have Telltales The Walking Dead. So this game is not for everybody, because Telltales The Walking Dead is almost not even really a game. A lot of the Telltale games are like that. It's more of a point and click, you do this and then you watch a story play out. But Telltales The Walking Dead is so good because it's following the comics in a sense. You got some of the same characters in there, but it's a completely different story, and the decisions that you make drastically affect the outcomes of certain scenarios. That will decide who lives and who dies in certain cases, and that has an overall impact on the end of the game. And it's one of the games, and you're going to see this as a trend throughout my list here, this is one of those games where when you make a decision, if you're not making the right decision, it's going to change things. It's going to really impact what happens, and that's very important to me as a gamer, and that's very important to this game itself. Like it really does make an impact when you do things, and you just get so attached to the characters that you're playing as well as the characters you're around, and they really do pound home the fact that you're playing a survival zombie game. Like, people die constantly, so you get close to these people, you learn who they are, and sometimes they stab you in the back, sometimes they just die. They're just there and then they're not, and that is something that zombie games do not do enough of. But Telltale's The Walking Dead did a fantastic job of that, and I plan to do a let's play here on the channel of the entire series, because I haven't played the very last one, I think, but regardless, it is a fantastic game. The OG one from back in like when did it come out? 2011, maybe 2012. I don't know. It's been out for a while, but it's a fantastic game. Pick it up. You might actually enjoy this a lot. At number 6, I'm just going to be honest, from 6 and down, things got really hard to position. It was really hard for me to decide where I wanted things to go. But at number 6, we have Far Cry 3. I remember when this game first released, I wanted Far Cry 3 so bad. I was sitting at home. In my game room at the time, and I think I had just watched a video about it or something, and I wanted to buy it, but I was so broke because I couldn't even have a job at that point. I was so broke, and I don't remember what I did. I think I sold some stuff to some people, some of my items, and this was all in one night. It was like 9 p.m. I sold some stuff to a friend. I called another friend. I got them to take me to Walmart, and I bought my copy of Far Cry 3. I had to play it. I was so invested in it, and it looked phenomenal. It was like nothing I'd ever seen at that point. So Far Cry 3 has you positioned where you and your friends are on a vacation, you're skydiving, you're doing fun stuff, and then at some point you get taken prisoner by some pirates on the island, and that is when you learn who Voss is, which Voss is one of the best, actually, you know what, I'll just go ahead and say it. He is the best all-time villain in video game history. He is a fantastic villain. You do eventually free yourself, and you spend the entirety of the game fighting back against an island of armored foes, pirates, private military corporations, even some kind of crazy stuff that I won't really get into if you've never played it. It's an old game, but maybe you haven't played it. But you spend the entire game fighting back against these forces to rescue your friends and to save yourself, and nothing is your friend. No one is on your side, from pirates to the wildlife. Nobody's helping you, and that was part of what really made the game good to me, was the fact that you had all of this wildlife that had to be part of your game. You couldn't really just avoid it, because you had to craft things to become better at the game, to fight these higher level enemies, to actually progress. So you had to go hunt for weird animals like giant alligators and crocodiles and snakes and sharks and stuff like that. And when these animals attacked you, sometimes you had no idea they were there, and when it happened, it would scare the absolute crap out of you. So again, this game it capitalized on something that I've never seen before. The world that you were playing in was lush and beautiful. Again, I love that setting for a game, and it really made you use everything in your arsenal in order to complete the game. So that is why Far Cry 3 is on my list. That's why it's at number 6. Really enjoyed that game. If you haven't played it, check it out. Next up here at number 5, we have a more recent title, and that is Detroit Become Human. Now, Detroit Become Human, I feel like it really flew under the radar. I don't think a whole lot of people actually played this game, but basically the entire story around it is the fact that humans have developed androids to serve the needs of human beings in many ways, from menial tasks like cleaning or being a store clerk to things like sex work and stuff like that. We have developed these robots to do this, but the technology advances so much to where androids practically are able to develop feelings in certain ways. And there's some things that I won't go into for the sake of the story, but they develop feelings and emotions, and that starts to take over their body. I forget what the term is that they use for the androids who do this. It might just be called, going rogue, like it's a defect almost. But you have to decide. You play as 3 different androids per se. You have to decide through your playing if they are just androids and you need to do the android thing, and that impacts those around you that you see in the story, or if there's something more than that. If they are starting to become less android and more human to a sense. It's almost as if you're fighting for a civil rights movement. That's kind of the position that the game puts you in, and it's another one of these games that makes you think about the world we live in now and how we treat certain people, races, however you want to look at it. The world we live in now, and then you go inside the minds of these androids who are almost fighting for their own right to have freedom. It's a very intense game. It's very good. Again, there are some crazy turns and plot twists. It's insane. I won't spoil it because it is a newer game. It came out about a year ago. If that's something that you guys want to play, go pick it up. It is one of those games where your decisions matter. If you make the wrong decisions, people will die. I love those kinds of games when they're done right. So again, if this is something that's up your alley in terms of gaming, go check it out, go buy it, and come back to this video and let me know what you thought of that game. At number 4, we have SpiderMan. So SpiderMan, again, this is a newer game. It was made about a year ago, and SpiderMan is a superhero game. Obviously, everybody knows who SpiderMan is, and I have a love for superheroes in general, hence the fact that Batman was on the list earlier. But they took that combat system from Batman, put it in SpiderMan, and then gave him Spider-Man gadgets, and it was a perfect game. Like, I don't know if I have a complaint for it, aside from some of the tasks that you do in the game were kind of repetitive, but that's about it. Aside from that, it was a fantastic game. And you don't play as, the generic new young Spider-Man, where Uncle Ben's just died and great powers means great responsibility or whatever he says. It's a Spider-Man that has been Spider-Man for a while. It is a Peter Parker who knows how to be Spider-Man. He has put away a lot of villains, but he's about to come up against some of the biggest villains in his career, and it obviously is going in a different direction than the comics or TV shows that we've watched, but it does a very, very good job of throwing a huge twist and a villain at you, as well as some of the ones that you've already come up against, and then also letting you know that there is something even worse coming for future installments of the game. So it is a fantastic game. It's the best experience that I've ever seen as Spider-Man outside of maybe some of the movies. It's really, really good, guys, and it's so immersive. The web swinging is so great. New York City actually feels like a character. Like, that sounds so generic and boring, but they did a fantastic job of making New York City not just feel like a location and more of an actual interaction. Like the buildings feel important. There are so many other Easter eggs in the game that have to do with buildings in other Marvel productions, like the Avengers and Daredevil, and I think the Fantastic Four and Doctor Strange. Like, there's so many things you can find in the game. It's really, really cool, guys. The DLC that they released for the game was amazing too, and I don't really say that often about story DLC. It's just a nice little add-on, but the story DLC for this game was great. I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10 for, I think there was 3 of them. For all 3 of the story DLCs, it was really, really good. At number 3, we have Red Dead Redemption 2. This game, guys, I don't even know where to begin. These bottom 3 were so hard to place in the order that I put them in. But Red Dead Redemption 2 was so good because it made me feel, it made me care about every single character and the little gang faction that you're a part of. It made me hurt. There aren't a whole lot of video games out there that have made me tear up, but this is one of them. There's a couple games on this list, and these are the only games that have ever made me tear up, but Red Dead Redemption 2 was so powerful, and this is just from the story. This isn't even taken into the fact the detail of the world, the mechanics, the way that the guns work, the way that things can jam and you have to clean your weapon, and the horse riding and all of that stuff. This isn't even taking that into a factor of this. This is just from the story. You know, you're playing as Arthur Morgan, who is part of the Dutch Vanderlyn gang before the events of Red Dead Redemption 1, and you get to see the gang in its downfall, you know, when things started to fall apart, and you have to make the decision while you're playing the game of what's it like to be a outlaw. Are you going to be the generic evil bad outlaw, or do you have some morality there? Are you actually a human being and you're not just going to be the scum of the earth, or do you want to be the scum of the earth? Those decisions, again, have an impact in a way to the end of the game. It's very compelling, it's very good, and you learn so much about so many characters. You become so attached to so many characters, and you see so many people die, so many people that were important to you die and disappear, and it hurts. It really hurts. It's just such a good game. It was fantastic. They could make the Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2 into a movie or a TV series, and I would watch the hell out of it. Again, it was really hard to put this at number 3. It could have been number 2 or number 1 as far as I'm concerned, but these other games had a heavy impact on me as well. So that is why RDR2 is at the number 3 spot. Fantastic game. If you guys have not played it, go check it out. Give it a shot. Even if you didn't like RDR1, go play Red Dead Redemption 2, please. At number 2, I'm probably going to get roasted for this one as well. We have The Last of Us. If you own a PlayStation 3 or a PlayStation 4 and you haven't played The Last of Us, there is something that you are seriously doing wrong. You know, I understand people who love multiplayer games, but there's no way that you can tell me you don't enjoy a good story, especially when it has to do with zombies. And The Last of Us does a perfect job of showing what it's like to be in a scenario where it's you and one other person against the world. That's Joel and Ellie against the world. There are high-risk situations. There are decisions that are made throughout the game based off of personal feelings that drive the decision-making for others that might not agree with that decision. And those decisions can have consequences for the entire world. So it's really crazy to see the gameplay. Again, it's one of those games that really makes you feel. It makes you think, and it gives you raw emotion. And it's literally one of those games that's a movie in the form of a game. It's so good, and I don't want to say too much because we know that there's a sequel coming out here in the next year or so, and I want people to be able to go enjoy that game. But The Last of Us, it's a sick, broken world. It's a different take on zombies that we really haven't seen before, And again, it goes back to the survival aspects with emotions that get involved with decisions that are made on the behalf of others that could impact the entire world. And again, that causes other emotions and feelings, and it's just a good game. It's based on feelings, and it's just raw and powerful. At number 1, last but certainly not least, we have Heavy Rain. And honestly, I probably would have never played this game if it wasn't for my brother. I don't even know how this happened, but he introduced me to Heavy Rain. And I remember I was on vacation in Florida, and I sat there in a dark room for multiple days, and I played all the way through this game. It was so freaking good. And again, it's one of those games where your decisions matter, and it's covering a topic that we don't really see in gaming. And I really don't know why we don't see this more in gaming, because it happens all the time. But this is a game about a serial killer, more or less. There's a serial killer on the loose. You're already suffering from the loss of somebody else, and then you lose your son because he has been kidnapped. He is lost. You don't know where he's at. Your actions and your ability to investigate while playing as various characters in the game determine whether or not your son, a kid, lives or dies, as well as many other characters in the game. Like, not even just characters that are side characters. I'm talking about characters that you play as. You play as, like, let me see, the dad, a cop, PI, and then this woman. So you play as 4 main characters, and every one of them characters could die. You could get every single one of them killed based off of your own decision making. And it is absolutely insane. It's absolutely crazy. It's raw, it's got a lot of emotion, and it's powerful. Again, it's just one of those games. It's a real life scenario where you see the pain of somebody who is dying, you see love, you see loss, you see all sorts of frustration, all sorts of things come into the works and just make this fantastic experience. There is a good ending, but I think that the good ending is extremely hard to get. And there's a bad ending. And when I played the game, I think I got the worst ending. I think that everybody died except for the person that you want to die. So again, fantastic game. This is my number 1 spot by far, because it blew my mind, the things that were happening and how important my decisions were at the time. And it was a great looking game. Even now, if you go and play it on the PS4, it's not a bad looking game by any means. It's obviously not super crisp like what we have nowadays, but it's super fun to play. It's very slow, but it's part of that because it's got such a deep story. So again, go play this game, check it out. If you enjoy that game, come back to this video and let me know what you thought down in the comment section. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the like button. Please subscribe for more content, and deuces.